With Nir, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, Eagle. Thank you for having me.
And I've been following you on Instagram for a while, or Loader Combat. If you haven't followed Nir and his company, Loader Combat, on Instagram, do so right now. Not just because you make some epic, you're an innovator when it comes to knives and tactical blades, but you also do such an amazing job in showcasing your Judaism, your leadership, your spirituality on the page itself.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So let's talk really quick. Obviously, I introduced you as this IDF veteran, former commanding officer of Israel's elite counterterror unit. How does one become a commanding officer in one of the most elite units in the IDF?
That's a brilliant question. I grew up in an Air Force family. So my dad's been serving in the Air Force for a while. When I was a kid, I always saw the planes. We would live in the different air bases. So I was always around military. I knew that I'm going to somehow serve because everybody does in 18. I didn't know if I'm going to be an engineer like my father. I didn't know if I'm going to make it to be a pilot like every Jewish mother's dream is either a pilot or a lawyer, at least in Israel.
Here it's doctor and lawyer, not so much.
See, over there we upgrade to a pilot. So I didn't really know what I did. I had very little information. Remember, we grew up in times where there was one channel in the TV, black and white, and definitely no internet. Everything you got is by maybe an older brother and older cousins. I'm the oldest brother, so I didn't really have that. I had my dad that fought 2 wars when I was alive and 4 wars overall in his lifetime. So we're always around that. I was good in school, but I wasn't good in the whole institution of academics and stuff. I liked what I liked. So I knew I'm probably not going to be one of those kids that get like an offer that can refuse to get into engineering or intelligence, stuff like that, things that you really prepares you for civilian life after the service. And being an athlete and doing martial arts since early age, I knew that I'm going to go and do some tryouts. So back in the day, we just used to call it commando, and you would have some tryouts or selections during high school years. So in the last 2 years of high school, you would be called out by different militaries and scouts. I mean, not militaries, military units and scouts, and do a tryout. Very little was known. It was always wrapped in mystery. And I was lucky that one of my cousins, who's 2 years older than me, made it to a counterterror units, which were formalizing at that time, called Mistaravim. Mistaravim means the undercover units that assimilate in the Arab villages and towns and cities. So we knew a little bit about it. I remember even seeing some piece on the news about it. So that was something that I had in my mind. Commando was a big word at the time. So by doing the tryouts and selections, I went to what I went to, and how I became an officer was the same the same child in me that doesn't like authority, mind you, in the military. I just said, okay, so what can I do? How about I climb the ladder of telling people what to do instead of being told? And that's how it came to be, which, by the way, funny enough, we spoke about having a pilot and a lawyer for every Jewish mom. Actually, being an officer is also in the 20s, something like that. If a girl shows up with an officer, then the mom approves of it. So
nice.
I want to also help me with the ladies.
So it's like, do you have money? Are you an officer in the IDF? We're good.
Exactly. So, there you go. The IDF will provide for your daughter.
Exactly.
Much, right?
I mean, so you were an officer in the counterterrorism unit, and that you were explaining that like that unit goes into the Arab villages and deals with terrorism essentially.
So yeah, so a lot of people don't think about it, but Israel is not only surrounded by back in the day it was more enemy states. Today we have some kind of peace or some kind of understanding with the Jordanians and the Egyptians, but we are surrounded by armies and countries that harbor terrorism. Hamas is very much legal in in Jordan. Hezbollah is in the north with Lebanon. Syria, not even a country anymore. I don't have to tell you what it is, between ISIS and Assad, Bashar al-Assad army, and Egypt, which had ISIS for a very long time. Right now in the peninsula, in the Sinai Peninsula, so always surrounded. And then you have Gaza Strip, and then you have the West Bank, and then you have the Arab towns inside Israel that also have some kind of different problems. Today we're talking about masses of illegal weapons that happen over there, crazy rates of murders within the Arab families, which is heartbreaking. But in the end of the day, you're talking about a population that excludes itself from the Jewish state, see themselves as Palestinians, whether they are in the Palestinian Authority or inside Israel as a sovereign country. And you have to deal with that by remembering that the majority is not hostile. The majority are people who wants to live their life. And yet you have to eradicate terrorism. How do you do that? By surgically going in and make the wolves dress like sheep, basically going back, dating to the Odyssey and, Ulysses after the Trojan War. So that mindset of going in, not showing any show of force, doing surgical operations and going out, sometimes without even a single bullet shot, is what those units are all about. And then I can let your imagination, or anybody who will watch Fauda, for example, kind of take it forward and understand how it kind of works. Then between fiction and reality, there's a whole array of things that we may or may not be able to address. But I think you're a good interviewer. So let's see how much you can squeeze out of me.
Yeah, let's see what we can do with the information that you can give. Right. So there's two things that come to mind. There's outer strength, like the physical strength, and I've seen you're a built guy. You can kick ass. And there's inner strength that I talk about all the time. And I think there's got to be a combination of both to be able to do what you did, right? There's got to be the courage on the inside, the mindset, the leadership, and there's got to be the physical attributes as well. If you can explain to us kind of like, what was the training like in order to get you into the mindset of not, I'm sure there was some fear, but not stopping you from doing the mission, not stopping you from going into the wolves and being surrounded by danger and still thinking about what needed to get done?
Okay, that's also a brilliant question. And I'm going to answer that with addressing not only the Israeli military or the special operation community, but talking about any elite athlete, any person, even a business, even people going through everyday life. And you have this two components of mind and body, which sometimes I believe we making doing a disservice to ourselves and our children if we educate them that it's two dichotomous components. It's actually one thing, because a mind without a body is a brain in a mason jar, right? And a body without a mind is a cadaver, right? So a mind and body is really one thing. So the training is getting your body to the pain that most people would quit, and understanding that you didn't even scratch the surface. You have so much more to give, and that's where your mind kicks in. So understanding that, think about it like a hybrid of fuel and electric car, right? You have the fuel, you exhaust the fuel. I may have not eaten for a day. Maybe I'm thirsty. Maybe the fatigue is kicking. Maybe I have this lactic acid in my muscles, but my mind is telling me stopping is not an option. And if stopping is not an option, then I continue to do it, and I might perform slower and I might perform a little more broken, but I will still keep performing until I'm dead, literally. So the training, the selection, actually, when I was talking about doing the selection in high school, the selection would take you to literally break your spirit. We would start off as like about 3,000 kids in different campgrounds, 3,000 students, mind you, that just ate their mother's a home-cooked meal and just came from like flirting with girls in the bus, and all of a sudden being there, just men with crazy drill sergeant that yell at you, looking at you. Nobody cares where you came from. Nobody cares about your achievement in school. What your black belt in jiu-jitsu. Back in the day, it was, different martial arts that were more popular, and nobody cares where you came from. Your dad is driving a Bentley or he's driving a bus. You are there with other people dressed up with oversized uniform that they got from one of those surpluses, look like a clown, and you have to perform things that you've never done before. Doing the stretcher, the medical stretcher where you basically evacuate people. Put a lot of extra weight over there. wear really, really, really heavy backpack and go up the mountains, or doing like crazy drills until sunset, or till sundown rather, on the beach, and climbing the cliffs for hours with very little water, with very little food, with a lot of yelling, with a lot of crazy missions to break your spirit. And from 3,000, before you know it, you left about 400 or 300 people. And from there, you're going into more and more and more. And it's the second day and the third day, and you don't sleep. And they throw flashbang at night when you sleep in a little cot with no mattress, which also kind of tackles your psychological strength. So whenever I'm thinking about mind and body strength, it's about how much you're letting yourself, what are you telling yourself rather? How much you're letting yourself take the situation and say, okay, I cannot take it anymore. What is the words that echo in your mind? It's essentially, it's you, right? Because your decision to break is not because you can't do any more pull-ups. It's not about pull-ups. It's not about running fast. It's about continuing to do in the mission. Yeah, you need fitness, you need to be trained, you need to be healthy, but you have to have a healthy mind that has a mindset of I can. As a matter of fact, it's funny because in my household, I have two boys. I don't allow the word cannot. You can tell me I don't want to. Hey, I tell my son, hey, go get your backpack, get it ready, we're going to school. I can't, I'm watching. No, don't tell me you can't. You're watching this, you're putting your sock. Tell me I don't want to, or yes, I will do it in a minute.
Yeah.
But the word cannot does not exist. You can tell me any other excuse, I will accept that. And that's also what you should be telling yourself when you're doing all this training and the selection and everything like that. And the selection is just the one first component in a very long journey of the entire 18 months of training that basically does the qualification. A lot of other people drops. The drop rate is insane. In my unit, for example, less than 10 people stand in the podium.
Wow.
At the end of 18 months. Yeah, it's one of the craziest rates.
So from 3,000 to 18, let's say, my question to you is, did you go in with that mindset, or was it like forged, broken there, and you just came out on top?
That's a very good question. I think it was something that my family always had these values of, well, we're Israelis, we have to come, we have to defend our countries. I remember my dad would always say when I was younger, because he was in uniform and we would walk around different air bases. Oh, how old is your son? Let's say 13. Oh, 5 more years for the military. He said, in 5 more years, it's going to be peace and the military will cease to exist. Literally, until today, we said that. If you ask me about my kids, whether they don't want to join, this or that, I would say, in a few years, there's going to be world peace. The army is going to cease to exist. So that mindset goes like, as long as it doesn't, as long as there is no peace, somebody has to do that. And I think because I had something to prove, I'm also the oldest of 4. And I had something to prove to everybody that I'm not just this firstborn, doing okay in school, but not trying to like ace anything. And like my sports, and like going to the beach, and like sometimes skipping classes and getting into trouble, that if I put a mission in my head, that nothing will break me, just because I have something to prove to myself and my dad, obviously, and everybody around me. It was also a little bit of like a halo. Oh, you made it to this unit. So there's a little bit of ego that drives you. Yep. And there's a little bit of self-discipline, I would say. It's a component of both.
I love that. Ego and self-discipline. I agree. So you got through the unit, you made it to the 10 standing on the podium, and I'm sure there was more hell to endure after that to continue the training, because you had to be trained even more, I'm guessing, right? To be able to take on what was about to be given to you.
Yeah, as the as the Haitian proverb goes, behind mountains there are more mountains.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's more training after that, and there's more qualification. If you think that becoming an officer makes your life easier, it's actually the other way around. You sleep less and you train more. You have much more responsibility. But I don't know what drives you. What drives you is this fire inside you. I think it's something that instilled with you from values, and from seeing the reality and understanding that you get this sense of achievement when you do something that is a little more than just yourself. Yeah, there's some ego we tackled here, making it, and the ability to come and tell myself, okay, I had a goal, I made it. I've gone through hardship that most people dropped, and I'm here standing between, and my actually graduation was less than 10, and we're the few that can actually make it. Obviously, pride, but also the sense of calling that, okay, this is us, and we actually get to make a difference, and every mission shows that. So that was also a driving force to get through the hardship, or to get through the adversity and the challenges.
So let's talk about once you became an officer, you were commanding a unit, I'm going to guess. Let's talk about the leadership during that time. What created great leadership in your eyes in order to be able to take a unit of, I mean, 18, 19, 20, we're still boys. Like it's just, it's young, right? To be able to lead them into dangerous situations. Who did you have to become? What did you have to do to be able to take this team of incredible people and win at the missions?
That's so funny, because when you talk about how young we were, it's always astounding. I'm about to, to be 50 in a few years, and I'm just thinking back. It's almost like it's been yesterday, and I see such a huge learning curve between how I was when I first got my second lieutenant. I was about 20, and until today. Have you ever heard that you're going to become exactly the way your father was when you had your first child, or when they were about to say, hey, you're having a kid, you're going to be exactly the things that pissed you off about your dad, you're going to become that.
Yeah.
It's like your role model. When you come to that role, when you come to this position, you become that. So I think I became a combination of all my superior officers, my legendary sergeants, the people who really carved me into the person that I was when I graduated the officers academy. And when I got my first unit, I think I was trying to be humble. That's, I think somebody told me that if you can be humble and not trying to prove anything, that you're going to be yourself, and people are going to follow you for who you are. Because especially under fire and under stressful situation, you would see that you can't keep a poker face for too long. Yeah. You can't be somebody else that you're not. So even if I wanted to, even if my role model was, let's say, my legendary sergeant or my lieutenant at the time, I'm not them. I read situation differently. I talk to people on a different level. The way I get excited, the way I get angry, the way I get stressed, the way I get motivated is different, and it reads differently. And I think when someone told me, use the humility to remember you don't have to prove anything, and be yourself was a key component. But I was also a very learning curve. I think I started with a lot of ego and coming in. It was like, I know shit and you don't. I know stuff and you just green. 18, oh my God, between 20 and 18. A day in the military is a decade. Like if I'm over you and you've been there for a month and I haven't been, you've gone through so much that I'm just about to face, and every day, every minute is so challenging.
Well, I'm sure that like you get humbled, right? If you come into the IDF and you think that you're big shit and you've got this ego, I think you're humbled in a way. Like they make you do stuff. It's like, shut up and keep going. And you're broken at some point and you get humbled. And I think that makes you the better leader. You're
right. But don't forget that this humility also comes with a lot of people who didn't make it. So what does it make? What does it make your psyche? It's like, okay, I've done what they can. So it makes you feel a little bit superior, a little bit like a Superman syndrome. Yeah. So you have to always keep yourself in check, because lack of humility will also make you feel like you're invincible. And God forbid, in firefights and stuff like that, in gunfights, you're going to get shot just because you're thinking that, you've probably seen that even in movies that depict people that were like just legendary leaders. I remember a scene from Black Hawk Down where one of the sergeants in the convoy of Hummers is just standing, speaking on the radio, and bullet just flying above him. He's not even ducking. He's not even taking cover. That actually happens in real life, believe it or not. When bullets just became like almost like text messages. How many text messages you get a day? You don't get excited too much. Bullet become that. So okay, well, I got my address. We say every bullet has an address. So if I'm not the address today, I'm not the recipient. It's okay if I'm going to duck or stand. We've seen so many people laying down under like literally concrete and getting shot somehow. So it's crazy. You have to have this humility in check in every given time, especially when you're doing things in special operation. You're doing a lot of unconventional warfare, which doesn't even make sense to do. It's almost like being a thief. It's almost like being a robbery, stuff like that. Things that you would definitely depict in your head by doing things. Oh, it's illegal. It's doing the breaking and entering. How many breaking and entering have we done in the name of, just keeping the country safe. So you're doing a lot of things. You have to keep yourself in check. Remember that you're still a law-abiding citizen. You still want to do the right thing. You still want to keep values and virtues. And above all, you still want to stay humble, because you can't learn that which you think you already know. And if I think I know everything, a bullet is going to come at one point and change my mind about it.
Let me ask you this question. There's, we have different types of people listening to this podcast, Jewish men who are lawyers, like you mentioned, doctors, accountants, businessmen. And to the person who's thinking like, oh, well, that's different because he was an elite soldier. How can we integrate it into their lives today? When we talk about, leading the team, having that mindset, what can they do starting off small to think elite, to act elite just a bit without saying, oh, well, Nir is an IDF soldier. I'm just a guy in an office.
That's a very good question. And the truth is that's something that I deal with on a daily basis with the people I work with my employees. And I believe that it's very important to stay humble just because of that, and to show them that I wasn't carved to be a soldier. I wasn't, I was a kid just like everybody else. I wanted to go to high school and have, doing everything else that everybody did. Even in my military life, I still had my family time, my relationships, my this. I believe that cultivating that elite mindset, and that's I think everything about your business or everything about this podcast is what we're going to target, and we're going to try and stay focused on that, is your own values and your own way of conduct. So self-discipline is different than discipline, right? Discipline is like, I give you work and you're going to be a good employee, you're going to be a good lawyer, you're going to be a good thing. That's discipline. Self-discipline is when nobody sees, nobody hears, nobody knows what's up in your mind. What are you going to do now? Are you going to do the right thing or the wrong thing? In my mind, the world, and can we say something in Hebrew, Yetzer Hara?
Yeah, for sure.
How would we translate Yetzer Hara? The inner creative, the creative of bad in our soul.
The negative inclination, I guess, or something like
that.
I
love that. The negative inclination is what we face, not daily, but almost every minute, every choice that you have. Are you going to let this person pass on the lane? Are you going to be upset at this person who just got you upset? There's a lot of things that you can get in check on a daily basis, and that's the elite mindset of how do you not respond? How do you not react? And you train yourself to respond. Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. Somebody pisses you off. If I tackle your ego, somebody is pissing you off, and you just want to react to that, whether that's work, whether that's relationship, that could be your kid, your wife, anybody. So if you ask yourself, just make this one pause. This is the beginning of this elite mindset thinking is, I can react, I can be myself, I can be like basically everybody else. What if I react the way everybody else reacts? How does it make this world better? How does it make my world? How does it make my relationship with my family better? So you ask yourself, if somebody tells me something, try to provoke me. Do I give them the right to manipulate my feelings? And if I had an amazing day, maybe I closed an amazing deal right now, and somebody just pissed me off because he served me, I don't know, almond milk instead of the coconut milk in Starbucks. I can be pissed because I said that very clearly.
Yeah.
But what do I give the world as far as that key to manipulate my feelings and my well-being right now? Start by that. Then having the discipline to also have the humility when somebody tells you something, and ask yourself, am I going to react to that, or am I going to take it as creative criticism? I don't have to agree with that. Same thing about holding grudges. Am I going to hate on everybody who ever harmed me, or am I going to be the Superman or the elite and have the ability to forgive them, maybe limit their access in my life? By all means, I'm all about forgive and limit access. But it's also a discipline, because a lot of times we don't forgive, we keep the people in our lives, and we lose on both fronts. So that's what I'm thinking. I think self-educating yourself to be more responsive than reactive is the first key of thinking like an elite soldier. And you can ask, and I'm sure your mind is already working, so you can ask more of like specific things, and we can definitely address that.
I mean, what I'm hearing is that being elite isn't just about like the physical and the mental. It's also like that self-discipline, the inner strength, right? Like that elite thought isn't just about, I can go and jump over a wall and do a Spartan race. And a lot of people think about like elite that way, or that I'm making a ton of money. But what you're saying is like when you have self-discipline, that's what grows the inner strength. That's what creates the elite mindset.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And think about it. If your day yesterday was when you're just reactive to everything happening in the world, and today you're responsive. So you're creating your day by, okay, today I feel, pardon my French, unfuckwithable. What does it mean? It means nobody can come and ruin my inner peace. And if nobody can come and ruin my inner peace, I'm not immune to the world. I'm not detached, but I feel like unattached as far as everything that I do. I know that I'm doing my best. I have my self-discipline, not breaking, not thinking that everything that's happening now has complete ramifications about my entire life. It's happening right now. And if we're thinking about just like everybody can be, for example, everybody can act classy around classy people. Everybody can be very happy around happy people. And everybody can be very inspirational in the settings where everybody is artistic and creative. But who are you in the settings that actually really challenge you? When you have adversity, how do you respond to that? Are you reactive to that? Are you freaking out? And if your kids are there, do you remember the beginning of the COVID? Everybody was freaking out.
Yeah.
Kids don't know anything about viruses and world economy. They look at their father's face and they see how he responds. And the changes, now that is working from home. Now there's no school. Are you going to freak out? Or are you going to cultivate inner peace and see the opportunity in that? And remember with humility that you don't know anything, and by not knowing, you actually cultivate faith instead of fear. You show that to your kids, they basically read reality based on how father reacts, how mom reacts, how the setting, how your tone of voice. That's why I feel like when you never lose control, because you never really have control, but you have control on how you respond and how you react. So if you do that, you're going to see your day. That's why I'm challenging all our audience to try and think before they say anything, before they act, and just say, if everybody else would do that, what the world is going to look like. And if I take a different route today, and instead of reacting, I'm going to stay quiet. I'm going to cultivate some stillness, breathe, and tell myself, let's see the opportunity here. What is God or the universe is giving me, or what can I learn from this moment that otherwise would be just an easy day and maybe even boring? Oh, that's great. I have an opportunity to show my strength today. Something really stressful is happening. Now you cut me open with a knife. Speaking of Lotar Koban knives, now show me what's inside you. Of course, you're going to look shiny from the outside, but once I slice something, this is where I see the real personality, and this is your opportunity to shine. And contrary to popular belief, you can start out right now. It doesn't have to be something that you used to be. Your law school, me, elite soldiers, graduating this, graduating that, getting awards. Today is your opportunity to show that you chose to respond and to create instead of to react.
I love that, because the question I asked was, how can somebody become elite? And your answer from what I'm getting is, think before you speak, think before you act, and grow that inner peace first. And that's an amazing thing. There's a show I watch, Hatufim, Prisoners of War, one of my favorite shows ever made on Israeli television. And there's a scene where he goes into a room, they kidnap him, they put him in the room, they give him 3 seconds, and he's like, what's going on? They take him away and they start asking him, like, what did you see in the room? Right? Like, where was this? Where was this? And to me, that was an incredible showcase of inner peace, calm, because with everything happening around us, if we have that inner peace, that's elite.
Yes.
If we, you know what I mean? Like not necessarily shooting the best gun and jumping over walls, like I said, but like having inner peace today with everything that's happening, it's fucking amazing. I think that's what a lot of people want.
Yes, and think about it. What you're talking about is only the selected few would actually make that choice, because the human psyche is to respond fight, flight, right, or freeze.
Yep.
You can be above that. We are above animals. We get to talk today. You and I get to talk and exchange ideas. Maybe I'll come out from this conversation with some tools to cultivate, but I have the choice to cultivate them, right? And you too, and your audience too. So we can learn and we can become. That's why I'm very much against this dichotomy of definition, defining people, because it puts you in like a cell of, this is what you are and this is how you're gonna respond. This is how your days are going to look for the rest of your life. that means you're not growing. That means you're standing still. And it's actually contrary to everything in nature and contrary to everything we feel. That's why us as men, and let's talk about us as men because I think this is the majority of our audience.
Yep.
You don't see a cow in a nice green pasture and says, I'm giving amazing milk. They sell my milk organically in Whole Foods, but I really want to do a startup. I want to develop an application to really help other cows, right? You don't see the lion doing something when he devours a zebra or a gazelle, thinking, you know what, I might be eating the same food. I might change. The savannah here is a little too hot. Maybe I should get a vacation. They don't have motivation. They just live their life. How many men you know that just live their life? They're just on survival mode.
So many, just numb.
But we got all the tools not to. We got all the tools to grow. And the problem is growth in the Western world is a little bit synonymous to get a better car, get a better watch, get a better house. So sometimes get a better wife. There's too much materialism consisting of that. And also when we talk about being manly, have the physique, have the guns, have the training, get the black belt. I'm starting small, have the elite mindset, which means you are unfuckwithable in a way that I will not be able to break you. Most likely, I will not be able to affect you. If I cannot affect you, even advertising and jealousy doesn't affect you. Your body just got a Bentley. Amazing. Imagine that you have the power to really kill your jealousy and replace it with, not even kill, sorry, let's call it conquer. Conquer your envious instilled mind, because we're human beings. We're envy when we're babies. We're egotistic when we're babies. We're not so altruistic until we cultivate it and we think that that's the right way of doing that. And once we start controlling that and have a little bit of control, is the only little control you have is really on yourself. And that's why when we spoke about the negative inclination in Judaism, Yetzer Hara, contrary to popular belief, is not exactly the Satan of different religions and different diabolic mindsets. It's actually almost like a trainer that takes you and breaks you. A trainer, people actually pay for personal trainers. Imagine an alien comes and see people pay for people, just make them sweat and gasp for air. I was like, what the hell is going on with these creatures? And this is exactly what Yetzer Hara, the negative inclination, is instilled in us. So we can go through adversity to get outside of our survival mode / comfort zone and deal with things that would build us. You go to the gym, you don't lift 1-pounders because it's not going to do anything to you. You do something that breaks muscle tissue so you can be stronger for the next. So in reality, are you really training to be stronger for the next training? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, you're training because you want to grow, because you want to be able to face adversity and resistance. And now you cannot really handle that or push it away. But in 2 weeks, 3 months, that weight is going to be easier on you because you built enough muscle and resistance to do that. And now, are you going to stay with one weight? Again, no. You're going to cultivate different resistance. You're going to cultivate different exercises. You want to be in a growing situation. That's why exercise is good, because it's good for your mind. But keeping the mindset of I'm not reactive, and I'm thinking. I have stillness. I'm thinking before I react is the most important thing to do daily. And everybody is going to have an opportunity to do that as soon as they turn off the podcast, go on with their day, and face the first minor or major adversity or challenge.
Yeah. And it happens everywhere. It happens in business. It happens with a text message from the wife. It happens with whatever's going on in your life. If you can just sit there and think and take a moment before reacting, I couldn't agree with you more, Nir. It's where elite starts. And I want to take it to faith over fear. The last couple of weeks I've been kind of digging into our heritage and our wisdom. And there's things like, Yehuda Maccabi says, arm yourselves and be valiant men. The Shulchan Aruch says, don't let other people embarrass you or bring you down in the first paragraph. And this is what you're talking about in elite mindset. And when we started talking, I mentioned your faith is very apparent on your Instagram account, the tefillin, the talit. How has that helped you in becoming elite, in becoming a leader, in doing what you're doing today?
That's a good question, because I believe it was a little bit of back and forth. There was it wasn't just one consistent drive of getting closer and closer. A lot of things that I've seen, especially when I was young, took me from a very masorti, from a very traditional kid, into being a little more cynical about world and saying, you know what, I've seen too many eyes going into that glossy mode, and I don't believe there's afterlife. I don't believe anybody cares. I don't believe anybody's watching over this world. I've seen a lot of horrible, horrible atrocities on both the Arab and the Israeli side. I've seen horrible shit that the Hamas done to their own people, especially in 2005, when they were basically hunting down all the PLO operatives, and we actually had to, crazy enough, rescue the very enemies we fought exactly 3 months before. 3 months before they were my enemies. All of a sudden, their enemy and my enemy became their enemies, made them kind of my ally. We have to evacuate them. Things that happen over there, just horrible. How many piguim, how many bombs going off in bus stations, and in my hometowns of Sderot, they started shooting mortar shells in the beginning of the 2000s. Just homemade small little tubes of metal filled up with some explosive and landing basically horrible trajectory, horrible artillery, but they caused damage. And unfortunately, my cousin, my first cousin, was the first casualty. That's a scar on my own family, obviously. So all those things that I've seen, especially coming from a family that's very traditional, every Rosh Hashanah, every Yom Kippur we fast, going to do Shabbat dinner every time with the grandparents, going to this synagogue and that synagogue. It was too much of juxtaposed what I want to believe versus what I see, or what I've been taught to believe versus what I've experienced. And what I've experienced was kind of overpowering that. And I decided that this world is just born, die, and that's it. And everything else is a vacuum. And I think that with the humility that slowly, the more I've done, the more humble I became. Because the more you do, and you know that also from your professional life, the more humble you become. Talk to the best surgeon, even plastic surgeon, or those who do really complicated surgeries, and ask them after 20 years if they believe in miracles, and they tell you that they believe in their skills. They probably are more skillful than when they started, but more often than not, they'll say, listen, I have no idea how this succeeded. That was pure miracle. Oh, that's a medical miracle. Same thing with us. My HQ, my guys at headquarters are giving me eyes in the sky and drones today and stuff, telling me, no, make it to the right, make it, this is all. And my intuition is kind of telling me to go through the left. And going through the left is exactly where we should have gone, because going to the right had a booby trap door that later on the dogs or canines would find out about. And those crazy things that happen, more often than none, things that don't happen are more miraculous than the things that happen, because what could have happened, you know what I'm saying? So at one point you would go back and I think I went to a funeral once, which was a very impact funeral of somebody that was very dear to me. And the rabbi who was giving a speech over there was, trying to say that King Solomon in Kohelet, in the book Kohelet, how do you say Kohelet in English? Ecclesiastes, something like that.
Ecclesiastes, is that what it is?
There you go. Yeah.
Okay.
So he says it is more rewarding to go to a funeral than to a wedding. Now, what does that mean? I mean, going to a wedding in the Jewish faith is like, lesameach chatan kala, make them happy, the bride and the groom. It's like a big mitzvah. How are you telling me going to a guy who's already probably about to be buried? And the wisdom behind it is you're going to learn so much about how short this life is, how tov shem mishem and tov, a good name is greater than good oil, and oil means basically a fragrance. And doing this life has some kind of meaning, and there's a generation that we leave behind, and there's values, and there's things that we have changed, this small tikkun that we do, this small repair of this world. And now if let's talk as two men of faith right now. I mean, with the permission of all the audience, because we're not trying to be preaching anything, but I'm a man of faith. I believe you're a man of faith. We believe that God is almighty power. How had he created a world that is so imperfect? Because he has the choice to make the world perfect. How did he create a world that makes us as men so imperfect? And the answer is because he loves us and he wants us to earn what we get. Because if we don't earn, we don't have the sense of achievement. We don't have the sense
Yes.
of existence. That whole philosophy of existentialism, I can't even say that. Existential.
Existential.
There you go. The whole existential philosophy is rooted in the idea that you feel rewarded not when you get the car, not when you got this big ass house, is when you feel yourself spiritually and you've done something that achieved that. And if you've done that, and by the way, material is not a sin, and money is not the root of all evil. By the way, love of money is the root of all evil. That's the real phrase. So having the material and having the spiritual and combine them, and having the ability to give tzedakah, to donate, to do good to other people, to be altruistic. When you do that, you really fill your cup. You really fill,
Yes.
and you need an imperfect world to do that. So
Hold
going.
on. Oh, sorry. Oh, I want to stop you right there.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
you
yeah.
said
Go.
something amazing. You said like, how can we do good deeds if we don't have an imperfect world? Because we wouldn't have anybody to do the deeds for.
Mhm.
Love that. Love it.
Exactly. And if everybody would, then the world would become more perfect. And that's the tikkun.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. For me, getting to that point, knowing that I've done a lot, but a lot of what I've done was a pure blessing, was a pure, I can't attribute it to my skills. Why? Because my biceps are grown now, or because my shooting skills are better, or because I can run faster, or I can climb on a kasbah, or I can speak a better Arabic in this dialect of this exact neighborhood and assimilate and make them fold and go into a house that otherwise would be held by 5 Hamas, operatives.
Yeah.
No, it's the humility of cultivating that I'm doing everything I can, but even my hands or my eyes or my mind or my mouth, I did not create them.
Yeah.
It was created by God Almighty, which I see as not only a father, but also a king. So if he's a father, he loves us. But if he's a king, he expects us to do things. But unlike any king, it's a king. Actually, every commandment and everything he asks you to do is for your own good. Having that faith, whether you're a complete pious or a questioning person, which is great. Judaism is all about questioning.
Yeah.
You'll never hit bottom with Judaism. You're always going to get into more kushiyot, more questions, more, and you're always going to get answers. You're always going to get somebody who's going to be excited about answering you. And that infinite questioning, that infinite experience of experiencing things and see them more spiritual and more deeper and more humbling is what made me feel proud of being Jewish, proud being a traditional, Masorti, and strengthening my faith, strengthening my practice, strengthening my wisdom, and learning so much more. And every day, literally, I dedicate at least an hour a day to learning about our ancestry, to learning about our wisdom, to learning about the sages, and really apply them to everyday life. Because contrary to popular belief, the fact they lived where there was no television or iPhones or planes, that doesn't mean they lived less fulfilled life or virtuous life than we have.
Yeah, I agree. The last 3 weeks, it was really funny because I signed up for something called Partners in Torah. Like I started on Facebook, and they connect me with a guy in Israel, and every morning at 8:30 to 9:30 we study, right? And it's really been life-changing because all of this leadership stuff I talk about, it's all there. Like it's all there. And it's just taking the time to, one, work on my inner self, two, with the wisdom of my ancestors, just makes an incredible connection to my faith, to myself, to my people. And it's been amazing. So
it is amazing, and I'm so happy that you tell me that you're doing that, because how rewarding is it to connect with another man versus in our youth, when all we had in common is talk about maybe parties and cars and sports and
Yep.
and games, and all of a sudden you talk to a guy, maybe it's a guy that you have experienced that in your early age. And by the way, we're not telling youngsters that they cannot do that too. I mean, if I had the wisdom today at 20 to dedicate 1 hour a day to learn Torah and Gemara and all the sages and all the wisdom, I'm definitely encouraging everybody to do that. But for you and I, it came a little later, and I believe that it's never too late. Don't forget that Rabbi Akiva only learned how to read and write at age 40,
Yeah.
and he became probably one of the greatest sages of all times. And I find it fascinating what you're saying about how everything you need about leadership, psychology, family, business, self-virtues, self-discipline. It's all there. And it's amazing how you can take it and apply that.
I love it. Nir, this has been incredible. I have one more question for you
Talk to me.
before we go. The question is, why the nickname 300?
I'm going to keep it short. So it's biblical, as it's biblical as it is Spartan. So I'll start with the biblical. Originally, after my officer school, in officer school, one of our simulations is how to face your unit, and having like really different people, different men. Sometimes you go to a unit that either lost their captain or lieutenant, and they about to test you. Like, who the hell are you? We've been bonded and doing things. So, and sometimes you get a young unit, basically, guys who come in from you lead them from boot camp all the way through graduation, then operational unit. That's more organic. But we would always assume that I'm going to be the guy who's going to go into the lion's den and have like a bunch of warriors that have served probably as much time as I have, and me showing up with a rank that tells them that they have to do what I say, but I have to prove who the hell I am.
Yeah.
So I've always been a reader. I've always been a person that loves to read and self-improve and learn from as many people as possible. And the amazing thing about books, as you know, is you can learn from the dead. Somebody can leave a book behind, and he could have lived 3,000 years ago, and you can still learn from them.
Yeah.
And one of the books that really affected me was, and I didn't even know how much it affected me, is the book of the Judge Gideon. And Gideon in the war is getting commanded to take only 10,000 men against the Midianites, who are massive army. And he takes 10,000 men, and he selects the best 10,000 seasoned men. And then, they do the sermon, and the prophet tells him, you have to take them down to 300. And at this point, it's a suicide mission. You're going into a camp, taking 10,000, which is already, the underdog, and you're going to face an outnumbering army, being outgunned, not guns, but swords and stuff. But he was a pious man, and he did exactly what it is. And he said, how am I going to select? These guys are already elite. All the 10,000s are the most seasoned. How am I going to choose arbitrarily the 300? And the commandment was, take them to the riverbank just before the war camp, just before the war ground, and let them drink water. And the trick was, those who kneel and basically drink like a dog or face the water, are going to be outcasts. And those who basically sit by the river but bring the water with their hands to the mouth are going to be the chosen one. And it happens so that it was exactly 300.
Wow.
Now, what does it mean on a spiritual level, on a tactical level? On a tactical level, it means, well, no, let's start with the spiritual. On a spiritual level, it means that back in the day, you would live among a lot of nations, and most of the nations were pagans, and they would kneel before idols and before sculptures and statues.
Yeah. And
people would kind of do both. It was mixed, and you could live in a camp that do that, and people had this urgency to want to participate, and it to them looked like lucrative and sexy to try and do something and believe in a God that you can actually see, versus this crazy idea of believing in a God that is omniscient and lives everywhere, but you can see. So those who would kneel would kind of have this quasi demeanor of somebody who would basically worship idols. So that's the explanation. But tactically speaking, is you standing before the warpath. In order to bring your face into the water and drink, that means you put your weapon down. That means you're kneeling down. That means that you got your alertness from the war, from the mission, into your own crave, which is thirst. Now you are a lesser soldier or lesser in yourself than that person who keeps the eye on the target and brings the water to it, knowing that the water is there. All you have to do is scoop it and bring it to your mouth. So that is exactly what it is. And those 300 chosen men, later on in 2007, was the movie about the 300 Spartans. And all my units, we always had a beard because of the ability to assimilate versus the clean cut, you know, kind of picture of a soldier you're thinking about. So we're always like bearded and ugly looking. And for some reason, when my beard and with my hair and whatever it is, I always look like the King Leonidas, and people say, "Oh my God, it looks like you."
Yeah.
And even my dad at one point was asking if I'm that guy on the poster, and I said, "Dad, you know, I don't have a six pack and I don't wax my chest." So that was a joke. Yeah. So ever since 300 was stuck, and there's a lot of, by the way, the name Nir is kind of common also. So there was another guy in the unit that was named Nir, so I was near 300. It was another Nir. So,
Nice.
yeah.
That's epic, bro. Man, this has been amazing here. Thank you so much. If you're listening to this, start with the elite mindset. Start with what you were saying. Go check out Lotar Combat, LOTAR on Instagram. Also the website, lotarcombat.com. Amazing, by the way, you have amazing shirts, knives, tactical stuff, and just your Instagram is beautiful. Like it's incredible. So go check it out. Nir, this has been an honor, brother. Thank you so much. And as we say to everybody, two things. One, check us out on Facebook, Tribesmen, the Tribesmen group. And two, to you, I would say, Chazak ve'ematz, strength, encouragement. Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Honor is all mine. Chazak ve'ematz, and God bless you and everything that you do. And I'm very much looking forward to talk to you soon. And God bless you with everything you do. Thank you.
Likewise, man. God bless.